and welcome to episode 78 of PauseCast. It is April the 5th, 2018. I am Jessica Alouette, and I use she, her pronouns.
And I'm Mark Hanna, I use he, him. Welcome.
Howdy, Mark.
Hey.
How have you been?
Pretty good. Busy in a non-video game-ish way. How about you?
Yeah, I've been doing alright, I think, all things considered. Health's been in a little bit of a rough place lately, but it's provided some decent excuses to play some video games, I guess.
Okay, that's silver lining, I suppose.
Silver linings. I'll take these little silver linings when I can get them,
Yeah, definitely.
So if you have just joined us for the first time and you've never listened to this show before, hello, this is PauseCast. It is a weekly show about video games, what we like, what we don't like, things we've been playing every week, and we talk about them here for about an hour.
Yeah.
It's a nice format, I think.
It's worked well for 77 episodes.
Yeah, I think so. Shall we get into what we've played this week?
Sure, I'm interested to hear what you've played these past 2 weeks since we missed a week.
Yes, these past 2 weeks. I always let you go first, though.
Okay, I mean, that's fair. I haven't played that much. The main stuff I've done, aside from the occasional session of Diablo where I've not really changed anything, I've gotten to the point where my build's kind of solid, and unless I get like the one specific item in the whole game drop that I need, I don't think it's going to be getting any better. I also played a bunch of Into the Breach over the long weekend. And when I say played, I mean I mostly watched my brother play it and couldn't help myself but make suggestions that were probably more annoying than helpful. But as a result, he was really good with one squad that I was really not good with, so we've finally got enough coins to unlock all 10 squads. So I can pull from all of the mechs now when I'm playing that game, which is kind of neat. But yeah, he was mostly playing. So he first played with the initial one, and the first mission he did was a disaster. He nearly lost the game in the first mission, and I thought, oh wow, is he going to be bad at this? But pretty much everything after that went super well, and he played the squad that I found the hardest, which is called the Hazardous Mechs. They built around the idea that they damage themselves when they attack, but they heal themselves when they kill enemies. I had a real hard time with them. And every squad has got 3 challenges, where if you succeed in one of those challenges, you get an achievement, you get a coin, and each squad is unlocked by sending a certain number of coins, like maybe 5 or 6. And these ones, they were quite hard. One was deal 8 damage in a single attack. Normally you'll deal 1 or 2 damage in a single attack, but one of the things about this squad is the utility mech can give a status effect to enemies that make them take double damage. Another one was heal 10 points of damage within a single battle. Again, you don't normally take anywhere close to 10, so that's hard. And the last one was complete all 4 islands without having a mech dead at the end of any of the islands, which again, when they take damage constantly, is hard. And at the very end, he managed all of them in a single run, which was really impressive, I thought. At the very end, it was like the last mission, and if it succeeded, the final achievement would drop, and otherwise you'd have to do all 4 islands again. And I think we both spent about 15 minutes looking at the final move, just trying to figure out, is there a way to survive this? Because his overall health, the energy grid meter thing, was on 3. And if he did nothing, if he didn't prevent any damage, he was going to take 6 hits to it. It was real bad. And he managed to survive by destroying all but 2. And leaving all the mechs alive. But it took a long time for us to see that solution. He found it eventually. But yeah, no, that was fun. It's such a cool game. The last squad I've unlocked is the one that's all around fire, which I don't know if I'll find them easy or hard, because from what I've heard, they don't deal direct damage. So it might be they set things on fire. At least initially, that's all they do, I think. Which means that if there's any higher health enemies, it's going to take them several turns before they'll take enough fire damage to die, because you can't stack fire damage. It's just each round they take 1 damage. So that might be interesting. Some of them will be easy because 1 damage will kill them. Some of them might take 5, so that's most of the round. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes when I try it out. But yeah, that's most of what I've played this past couple of weeks.
It seems like those fire mechs would be like just excellent on. They'd be excellent against enemies that, or against maps that are primarily defense based rather than attack based. So like that allows for a lot of positioning control. You can control enemy positions quite effectively and counteract where enemies are going to be.
A couple of things you have to keep in mind with Into the Breach. One is you are always playing defensively. You're never really in an offensive position.
Right, okay.
And also, the enemies are dumb. They will walk into the fire. So you can't actually prevent them from going somewhere by setting it on fire. You'll just make them hurt themselves.
Huh, okay.
So it's not quite that straightforward, unfortunately. One thing that might be a good tactic with that would be like setting the ground on fire before something spawns there, so that when it comes up, it's already on fire. But I haven't tried that squad out yet. I don't know how it's going to go. It's been interesting with all the different ones having all of their different like special stuff about them.
Yeah, it does seem like Into the Breach has got like this set of really, really great gimmicks and great mechanics going on all throughout it. So like it's always got the potential to do something interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and the squads all feel really different as well, which is good for, like, when they've got 10 different squads, that is a lot to make them all feel distinct and play quite differently. And then there's also the ability to make custom squads out of any 3 mechs from the squads you've unlocked, which I haven't done much of, but there's some challenging looking challenges for that, like, use 3 of the same mech and win the game.
Right,
You'd have to pick pretty carefully, you know, it would have to be a high damage one that can also move stuff around. But yeah, it's nice now to have them all unlocked. I don't need to I don't think there's anything else I can spend the coins on, so there's still more to get. Now it's just more of a nice feeling than if I don't get more coins, then I can't unlock the rest of the content. So I'm glad it wasn't a matter of, like, you have to do everything before you can unlock it all. I don't know, there's probably something special that happens once you get all of them. I don't think I will ever get there, but yeah. We'll see, I guess. Maybe one day.
Maybe one of these days you'll get there.
One of the challenges is to do the first 2 islands with a particular squad in 30 minutes. And I tend to go at about just over half an hour per island. So I think I will find that one very tough. But I mean, I might be able to just tick the difficulty down and try it, I think. I don't know. I haven't given that a shot.
From what I've heard as well, this game's quite a bit harder than, like, as well as having all of these distinct feelings and stuff like that to all of these squads, it's also significantly easier and more accessible than something like FTL was. Like, FTL was really, really punishing, then this is quite a bit simpler. Yeah,
so FTL, I never won. I never finished the final boss fight, despite playing much more of that than I've played of Into the Breach. I think it's a longer slog with a lot more randomization. Like, if you don't get the good weapon drops in FTL early on, you're going to have a real hard time of it. Even on the easy difficulty doesn't feel easy, it just feels less hard. Compared with the normal difficulty, which feels very hard, to me at least. Whereas Into the Breach, like, you always will start with a decent set of weapons, and you don't need to get any more to win the game. It can be very helpful to get the right random ones available to you, but it's a lot easier to, like, select from a range than it is in FTL when you take what you're given and that's that. My brother was really lucky when he was playing through with the hazardous mechs because he got a passive ability that he could put on one of his mechs. That meant when one of them healed, all of them healed. One of them actively repaired, all of them repaired. So that made a really big difference with that particular squad because, you know, if they're all taking damage and you have one of them that can repair to heal the others as well, that was a big deal. But I think luck is less of a factor in Into the Breach than it is in FTL. At least I've found it that way. There's still an aspect of it, obviously, but, like, the scenarios are picked from a pool rather than random maps and stuff. And like I said, you're always going to start with something decent. So even if you don't find any good improvements in the gear you can get, you'll still manage just by improving the gear you already have.
Okay. Hey, I had a thought occur that's like kind of tangentially related to like difficulty and randomness and roguelikes.
Yeah, go for it.
I'd like to get a yes or no answer based entirely on what you know of this game.
Okay.
So based entirely on what you know about PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, is PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds a roguelike, yes or no?
I need to think about this.
I'm going to say yes, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is a multiplayer roguelike.
See, part of me is thinking that roguelikes tend to have some form of progression. Like, if you hit some threshold in one playthrough, then in subsequent playthroughs you've unlocked some more stuff. Is there that aspect to PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds?
I mean, there's the cosmetic items.
I suppose, okay, yeah. I mean, there is definitely the aspect of die fast, start again, and that is like the very, very core of roguelike stuff. And there's a randomization of where the loot drops are and stuff, right? And
you start fresh every time.
Yeah, I can see that. I think the main reason I'm hesitant to say yes is just because it's such a non-traditional perspective for a roguelike. They're so often like 2D games and stuff.
I can think of a couple of examples, perhaps not good, but I can think of a couple of examples of a 3D roguelike game. One that I can think of is Necropolis, I believe, which was a 3D indie game. And another one I can think of was one called Wasted that I tried out. Would have been probably last year at some point, which was it was a post-apocalyptic third-person shooter roguelike, which was kind of cool.
Okay.
It is a very weird perspective to think of a roguelike being in, though, because I agree with you. I definitely, when I think roguelike, I think it's like this 2D game. Like it's like something like Nuclear Throne or Escape the Gungeon or FTL.
Yeah.
Those are like the quintessential examples I can think of when I think roguelike. I thought about it strictly from a mechanical perspective, and PUBG also fits a lot of the criteria that seem to make up a roguelike.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the very core of it is die fast, start again, not everything's the same each time, and it definitely has that. That's interesting. That's an interesting perspective.
PUBG's a roguelike. Confirmed.
Yeah, you've convinced me. I agree.
All right.
Though it's still, it doesn't have entirely the same feel.
No, it definitely doesn't. I think that's owing largely to the multiplayer perspective, though.
Probably.
I think that's maybe it, but otherwise, mechanically, it matches up with what we expect from a single-player roguelike.
Though you have to keep in mind, one of the things about roguelikes is it's about trying to do better last time, but you're measured against yourself. It's very much like, running a time trial in a race, and you want to do better than your last time. It's like you want to get further this time than you got last time.
I mean, you could measure that as the mechanic of chicken dinners.
You could.
Did you win last time?
But, beating yourself against a computer is a different feeling than beating what you did last time when you're against a bunch of people, I guess. But, I mean, that's just part of it. But, so it feels like the aim is maybe slightly different than, I'll say, other roguelikes to show I'm still agreeing with it. But, yeah, I think that's maybe a difference, but not enough to make me say, no, it's not.
Interesting.
Because you don't hang on to
question.
You don't hang on to your character. It's not like, if I think of what multiplayer shooters I've ever played, it's like Mass Effect is the only multiplayer shooter I've really played much of. And I guess you die in there, but you don't get booted out of the match and start a new one or anything like that, and you hang on to your character.
That's kind of why I was thinking it's more roguelike than it is anything else, because it is a one and done situation.
And I do remember you talking about how once you're dead, you don't have to stick around and watch the rest of the game. You just go off and find a new one.
Exactly.
So it's not like you're beholden to the rest of the players in that way.
They're actually now adding a killer spectator.
So you can watch the person who killed you?
Yeah, you can watch the person who killed you as they go through the game from that point.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a feature that's been in PUBG's most direct competitor, Fortnite, for a while, and people thought it was like a really smart idea because it meant that you could also like watch, the final kill of the game and see how it transpired, or you could watch the top 10.
So does it like follow if you watch the person who killed you and then it goes to the person who kills them and so on until it's the last person?
I believe so, yes.
Interesting. I mean, anytime you get killed or just beaten in that sort of situation, not just PUBG but more generally, you kind of always have that wish that I want the person who beat me to beat everyone else as well,
I mean, I don't necessarily. My initial reaction is like, oh, fuck off.
Okay, there is that. But I also want to be like, hey, if someone beats me, I want them to be the best person. To justify losing. So then, I can just imagine you'd be rooting for them after you're watching them, after they kill you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could sympathize against that, like, Overwatch, where, in a lot of matches, I feel like I outclass a lot of the other players in a particular match, and so I was like, I got beaten down by this DPS player that I thought was not doing so hot, and now here I am dying to them. Oh, I'm a disaster. They better be really good, actually, and they've just been screwing a couple minor things up, and I've just noticed those. Ugh. Should I talk about what I've been playing this week?
Yeah, please.
Alright, that was an abrupt transition.
That's
I'm
all right.
sorry for that. This week, I think this is the major one, so maybe we'll spin back to it, but I played a little bit of Far Cry 5 this week. Yeah, just a little, but I played some Far Cry 5. I also played my usual assortment of multiplayer bullshit. I jumped back into Battlefield for a little bit. I got to try out a couple of the new expansion maps, finally. They are really, really pretty.
Cool.
Assassin's Creed Origins. And that's kind of been... I think that's kind of been my week in games. There's a lot of multiplayer bullshit, and a little bit of Far Cry, a little bit of Assassin's Creed. I'm trying to get through that so I can have the excuse to go back to Final Fantasy 15 and play through and finish that as my next, this is your big, action RPG thing, because that's what Assassin's Creed Origins has slotted into right now. I
found it interesting and kind of disappointing how Final Fantasy 15 has been the first Final Fantasy I've played in a while where I haven't, after playing it for a while, I haven't really wanted to just go and finish it, and not because I love roaming around the world, but I just didn't really feel tied to the story in the way others have for me. So although I have played probably about 8 hours of it, I hadn't felt any pressure to go back. I'm kind of sad about that.
Yeah, I think you're at a point where it does start to ramp up and get really interesting too, so I honestly think it might be worth dipping back into that well sometime.
I mean, I might eventually. There's a lot of games that I might eventually go back to. Every now and then I think about going back to Witcher 3, but the problem with games like that, I guess, is because I have spent a big chunk of time in them, 10, 20 hours sometimes, I feel like I should start again because it's been so long. I'll have forgotten where I'm up to and stuff. And all the things
I definitely know that feeling. And when I go back to Final Fantasy 15, it is going to be a similar situation where I will have played up until Chapter 8 or 9, and I know that I'm just going to reboot it when I start it up again.
And then there's that thing of, but then I have to play 20 hours to get up to where I was again, and suddenly I'm feeling disheartened.
I mean, I think I'm at the point with my own gameplay personally where I don't feel like that matters to me in particular, because what I get invested in is the story. And so if I can't get reinvested in the story, it's hard for me to justify playing it again.
Yeah, that's exactly the problem I've had with Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah, if it didn't land with you in the first place, then yeah, I could see it being really hard to justify wanting to get back into.
Which is a shame, because I typically really enjoy Final Fantasy games, so I'm sad to not like it. I don't want to say it's a bad game or anything like that. I feel like it's a frustration with me that hasn't clicked with me as well, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. On a related note to Final Fantasy, do you remember a few weeks Chrono Trigger came out on Steam?
Well, it wasn't. It was like bad Chrono Trigger. They did.
It was
like,
bad
it was
Chrono Trigger,
like
yes,
the
but it was
mobile
Chrono
port.
Trigger on Steam.
They had like a smoothing algorithm over the graphics, so it wasn't the proper original ones. It was sort of upscaled, but in a way that they blurred all the pixels together, so it wasn't really pixel art. It doesn't look quite like the original. And they had like the mobile touch interface overlaid on it, but on a non-touch
And weird new
screen.
assets and stuff, yeah.
So I've heard. So I'm guessing this is what you were going to say, that they're adding the option to revert it to the original graphics on the PC version.
That is what I was about to mention, yes.
Yeah.
The Chrono Trigger port on PC is looking like it's going to get an improved version with the original graphics. They have some more patches planned that are going to improve the game over the next little while. It's 3 major patches, I believe they've said they're going to be doing. So I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes, because that actually might be a really great place to pick up Chrono Trigger if it's not like a bad version of the game.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of more people getting exposed to Chrono Trigger is really cool, because I love that game so much. Buying it on Steam, I don't really need to, because I got the DS version, so maybe once my 3DS finally dies or whatever, then I might, just so I've got a like legally bought copy instead of always having the emulated version. But yeah, it would seem like it'd be so close but not quite there if it was this version with the graphics just kind of messed with it a bit in a way that wasn't really improving them. It was just kind of making them not like they were originally. I don't know.
I mean, like, I think one of the things that was pointed out at the time of its launch was like, oh hey, like, Square Enix is a big studio and they have enough money that they could have just licensed an emulator and put the ROM in there, which several other companies have done for emulating for bringing their games to PC. They've just licensed a copy of the emulator and put a ROM of their own game into it and just sold that off, which allowed people to legally purchase the ROM, essentially, and then use that in other emulator software if they really wanted to, so they could have a little bit more flexibility.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, the PlayStation version of Chrono Trigger is the one that's been sort of moved forward. The original was on the Super Nintendo, but it was sort of, there was a little more added in the PlayStation version. That's what got ported to the DS.
Okay.
And I think it's also, that new content is also on the mobile one, but I haven't really looked into it. It had some like anime-style cutscenes and some new in-game content that I haven't actually got to, but my flatmate has played through, because he played through it on an emulator on his phone, I think it was.
Huh. Yeah, that's pretty neat.
But yeah,
should I talk about Far Cry 4 or Far Cry 5?
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Talking about Far Cry 4. Go on.
Oh yeah, I mean, Far Cry 4 was really good. It was set in the Himalayas and like it's really pretty. Far Cry 5 is a lot of the same. Here is what I think about Far Cry 5 right now.
Okay.
First, the opening of that game is incredible. Straight up. It is amazing to see what they've achieved with that engine. It is amazing to see that, like, the opening cinematic in motion is, first, really brilliantly rendered, and second, it's a great tone piece for the game.
I have heard, and this is minus spoilers, I guess,
Sure.
that they've continued or established now what seems to be a Far Cry tradition of, if you do nothing in the first scene, you win the game.
Now, I haven't tried that.
I've read that if you do nothing in the first scene, the credits roll and nothing happens, and like the story ends. And then you get chucked back in and do the other thing and play the game.
Yeah, that checks out. It may be part of a new Far Cry tradition that is the way to do things. Because for those who are not already familiar, Far Cry 4 allowed you to wait 10 minutes in one of the introductory rooms after the main antagonist leaves the room. You can also leave the room and start the story proper, or you can stay in the room for 10 minutes, the antagonist will come back, and you'll have a pleasant discussion, go off and do what you came to do, and then it is implied that you go and wreak havoc on the country. just because you can. And that is the secret ending of Far Cry 4 that you get by just waiting around in the introductory room. It's been a few years. The statute of limitations on that spoiler has expired, I reckon.
Yeah, and it's not a huge spoiler anyway, I suppose. But
not really. It's a little bit of alternate content that's very easy to get.
Apparently in Far Cry 5 you don't need to wait nearly as long, and it's a little more interesting while you wait because there's NPCs talking about how you're not doing anything, kind of. I haven't done it, this is just what I've read, but apparently it's more on the lines of 90 seconds or something, I think, rather than 10 minutes, which is a significant wait when there's no sign that waiting is doing anything.
Right, yeah.
Sorry, but I interrupted, so keep going.
No, that's fine. So yeah, Far Cry 5's intro, when actually played through and all, is a really, really great tone-setting introduction, and it shows off what they've achieved now that the limitations of last-gen technology have been tossed to the side, and now it's fully, we've brought this game into the next generation, and we can show off exactly how beautiful we can make this video game. It's a great piece for that. Then narratively the game immediately falls apart. For starters, your antagonist's beliefs are never really defined beyond kind of vague terms, and even then, it's kind of largely meaningless what they believe, and it's never really acknowledged. They're just, it's a weird, vaguely Christian cult.
So it's kind of a stand-in rather than anything specific.
Yeah, which is disappointing considering a lot of the imagery that they evoked in a lot of the early material for this game. It's just not present. Like, there's no political swing or bite or tooth to Far Cry 5 at all. It's trying its best to remain ambivalent, and that kind of hurts it. Especially by not giving your antagonist any real belief or anything interesting to talk about. Like, it really bums me out to see that stuff in motion. The game itself, beyond the narrative concerns, is probably one of the best designed Ubisoft games ever.
Yeah?
Yeah, like, for the open world exploration stuff, your map starts out basically completely blank. And as you go, you'll see, like, signs on the road, and they will add information to your maps. You'll pass by a sign that says, hey, there's cougars in the area. And you'll get a little pop-up on the side that says, new hunting area added, cougars, because you just saw this sign in the game and learned about this information, so then it gets written down on your map.
What does the map interface like?
It's not a physical map or anything like that.
Is it in a pause menu?
It's in your pause menu kind of situation. I guess the standard map for an open world game now, most of them are just in the pause menu. And
I honestly Far Cry 2 is still my favorite Far Cry game, and the physical map is a big reason why. It was such a good choice.
I love the physical map. It's really, it really, really does a lot to bring you into the world of that game. I would really love to see another magic physical map appear in a Far Cry game at some point.
Yeah, hearing about Far Cry 5 has made me want to install Far Cry 2 and play my favorite Far Cry game again.
It's actually, it's quite interesting as well. The map itself, when you're taking a look at it, it allows you to kind of change it to a Skyrim-style perspective as well.
So like a 3D pop-out kind of thing?
Like a 3D pop-out kind of thing, yeah, and you can move through and you can see all the mountains and valleys, and it's really quite pretty. They've done a really great job of that stuff with this game, and the exploration stuff as well, like naturally revealing information to you and adding it to your map is a really, really interesting approach.
Yeah, that does sound quite nice.
The other thing that it's really good at is, for its story missions, it appears to allow you to access certain missions anytime you want. So myself and Ash were playing in co-op, because that's a thing you can do now in this game. That's a lot of fun, by the way.
Cool.
We fucked around with that a lot. But we decided, because I wanted to go check out one of the first locations you pass by, there's this big statue on a hill that we could go check out. And so we drove up to it. And as we did, we actually got a radio call from one of the first people you talked to in the game. And they were like, "Oh, hey, I've noticed you're over here. You know, I heard rumors about this place. And, you know, there might be something good if you blow up the statue." And so we started attacking the statue because
That's
we
how you blow
could,
things up.
and we had explosives and stuff like that, so we actually could.
Okay.
And that actually kicked off a story mission.
Huh.
And, you know, we ran through that whole scripted sequence completely out of order from the game. We had not been given a mission objective saying, "Hey, go here and do this thing," or anything. We just kind of found it through incident.
Interesting.
There was even special dialogue after we had completed the mission, acknowledging that we hadn't done the first thing you're supposed to do in the region. We hadn't done that at all. We hadn't gone to the first location at all. And we got dialogue acknowledging that, like, "Oh, hey, there's these people over here, and they could really use your help." It was a very small detail. It was very cool to see that we could trigger that story event regardless of where we actually were in the story. We could just kind of start that and make it happen. It was a really cool moment.
Nice.
So those are the praises I have for Far Cry 5. It has some really smart gameplay choices, but the narrative is just really lackluster so far, and everything I've heard about the game suggests that does not improve.
Right. How is the setting in general?
It's gorgeous.
Oh, sorry, just a sec. That's probably being picked up on my mic. Some arsehole with a very loud stereo in their car driving past, and you can feel the walls moving as they thump past. They're gone now.
Okay. I could only hear it a little bit, I believe, from what it's worth. What was my...
Oh, that's what the setting was like. You said it's gorgeous, and then I interrupted you.
Okay. The setting is gorgeous. It's... For those who are not familiar, this is the first Far Cry game that's being set on U.S. soil. It's being set in the fictional Hope County in Montana. A lot of forest, a lot of, like... I don't really know how to describe this other than, I guess, rural American imagery and, like, you know, a lot of the imagery of, like, quaint small towns and log cabins, firewatch towers. Like, there are things that I think are specific to that, to, like, rural areas. And they're all rendered really, really beautifully. It's a really interesting setting. There is some good setup work done for the region and the cult's influence on the region, which set up the game right in that intro. Like I said, that intro is really, really good as a tone piece. It's really, really strong. And then after that intro sequence is done, it just all immediately falls apart. Yeah, I really think that the setting of Far Cry 5 is interesting, though.
It's interesting because I've always thought that one of the things that sets Far Cry apart from other shooters is the setting. And so putting it in America, to me, feels like they've gone away from... I don't know, it feels like a less interesting thing to me, but I'm saying that having not played the game, so maybe it's just not fair me saying that.
I feel like even though it is set in, like, you know, just... it's rural America. There is a lot of really, really great setting potential there. There's a lot of forest, like I said. There's mountains, a lot of open field as well. Like, there is a good balance of the kind of things that you would expect to see in a Far Cry game. And it makes for an interesting setting, regardless of it being set in America for a change.
Have there been any sort of bizarre things you've noticed? Like, you remember how Far Cry 3, all of the NPCs who were on your side, just for no reason, had a Kiwi accent?
I remember the only odd thing that I've seen is Ash could sucker punch basically any enemy, including a bear, and
that's how
destroy
real
them.
life works.
Yeah, that's how real life works. She's got some bizarre sci-fi ass weapons too, which is, again, it's completely out there. We had a lot of fun goofing around with that stuff in co-op, though. It was a good time.
I think the original Far Cry, which I've never played, had a lot of sci-fi elements, and then they kind of completely departed from it in Far Cry 2.
I feel like I've heard that before as well.
But this is like, I've read the Wikipedia page once, so yeah, take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I can't confirm, but I feel like I've heard something to that effect before as well.
I mean, they've definitely done like the spoof side game Blood Dragon, which had a lot of bad sci-fi. Like, it was a parody game.
It totally was.
And they had this sort of, I don't think it was a parody, but it was still a side game. They had that one where it was like prehistoric.
Yeah,
stuff.
Far Cry Primal.
That's the one, yeah. I wonder if they'll do a similar one for this one, because they've done it for the last couple.
Well, from what we know of the DLC for Far Cry 5, it's all supposed to be like really, really out there. Like going to Mars kind of situations.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, like really out there.
I mean, that fits the previous DLC.
Yeah. So, I don't know. That stuff will probably be interesting too, even if it's not narratively interesting. It will probably be a good time. And, you know, if just having fun and not really thinking about anything and shooting guns is your jam, then Far Cry 5 is probably your jam. If you like good story, maybe steer clear if that's the main reason you come to a video game.
Fair enough.
I've heard some speculation around the story of that game. In particular, that it was held back because Ubisoft, a lot of their stock was being held by a company called Vivendi. And they were concerned about a hostile takeover at the time. Which meant that if Far Cry 5 was a big enough financial failure because they didn't appeal to both sides or whatever, that
Both
Vivendi,
sides?
both sides of the political spectrum. So, like, if they didn't appeal to both left-wing and right-wing people, that Far Cry 5 would be enough of a financial failure for Vivendi, this company that held a majority stock in Ubisoft, to perform a hostile takeover and completely take over Ubisoft as a studio, was some of the speculation that I had heard. And so that's why the tone of the game had been cut back a lot.
That's weird.
Recently, though, they've come out from under that, which is why that is of note.
Right.
Vivendi sold all their stock back to Ubisoft, and so now there's no threat of hostile takeover looming over them. So we may start to see some more narratively ambitious and political games from Ubisoft. That's a maybe. I don't know what is going on at Ubisoft. I don't represent anybody within that, obviously, and this is entirely speculation. That seems to have a decent enough foundation, so it was, in my opinion, worth talking about.
Yeah, it's certainly a weird omission in a video game during the current context, like right now, that is set in America, where you are Americans shooting Americans.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing to just ignore completely.
It was, again, a lot of speculation around the game's launch and how the story was going to be was that it was going to be really, really intensely political and like incisive and focusing on the gun culture in America and being critical of that, where we got instead something that is ultimately just a lukewarm take, and it tries to play both sides of the political spectrum as if they're equals. And in this current setting, that just doesn't work. It comes across as weak and insincere.
Damn it, I'm doing that thing again where I nod. No one can hear me nodding. Sorry.
In space, no one can hear you nod.
It's true. On a slightly different tack, how are the dogs? Because dogs are a thing in this game.
The dogs are very good. You
Yeah?
can pet them. There's a really cute animation when you go to pet the dog where it jumps up and gives you a lick on the face. It's adorable.
Cool.
And it looks super cute from the third-person perspective, too. Because me and Ash were playing in co-op. So we could see when the dog jumped up on us and gave us a lick on the face. And it was so cute!
So how does it work? Is there just like the dog and it's the
There's
one
just
dog?
the dog.
Okay.
There is a few other animal companions. There's a bear named Cheeseburger.
Okay.
I don't know. I haven't unlocked Cheeseburger the bear, but I know that Cheeseburger the bear is there. There is a puma as well. And all of these you can pet.
Now, you mentioned cougars before. Pumas and cougars and mountain lions are all the same thing, right?
I think there's slight differences between them. Don't quote me on that.
Let me Google it, but keep going.
Okay, you Google that and find out if pumas, cougars, and mountain lions are all different or the same. I think they might be the same, and maybe it's a cougar.
Yeah,
And
that's the same.
okay, it's the same animal. Confirmed. Okay. Welcome to PauseCast, where we don't know shit about shit. I don't know. Fuck about shit, my dude.
It's a big cat. All big cats are just big cats.
I'm a big kitty.
I mean, that's... Damn it, no, I can't leave that
pets.
standing. It's not true. Not all big cats are just big cats. There's different types. Okay, let's keep going.
You can pet the big kitty, though. That's good.
That's good. There's like cars and stuff as well, right?
Yeah, sure, there's cars.
Can the dog ride the car or in the car
I
with you?
believe the dog can ride in the car.
Good. Can the bear? Because I didn't realize it was a bear, but now I'm interested. Can the bear get in the passenger seat?
I don't know if the bear can ride in the car. I think the bear is just a magic bear that warps wherever you go.
I want the bear to get in the passenger seat of the car with me.
I've also heard that there's some narrative stuff that's only delivered through the radio.
Oh, you're going to say the bear.
Through the bear, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
the bear speaks
You can only... The storytelling bear will bring you all of the information that you need to know everything about Far Cry 5. Now, I've heard that there's some narrative stuff that is said over the radio over the course of that game, and that the ending only makes sense if you have listened to a lot of that.
Okay. I don't know anything about the ending, but I've seen that a bunch of people are talking about the ending, so I assume something happens.
I would imagine something happens, yeah. I've heard that it mostly makes sense, though, if you've listened to the radio broadcast. There's like some context that sets up the ending.
Right, they foreshadow the aliens or something.
Yes, definitely. It's all aliens.
That's how every other Far Cry game has ended.
That's true. Mafia 3 did something similar, too.
With aliens?
No, not with aliens.
Oh,
Just
with a bear in a car.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, just go, sorry.
Narrative over radio. There was side stories that were related to the things that you did in that game that were told only over the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And there was there's some really cool features in that game that are related to the radio, like right in the lead up to the final confrontation. The radio will start playing modern covers of the songs that you've been hearing throughout the game. So all of the songs that you've been hearing are like period accurate, and they are the original recordings as they were heard in the 1950s. And then during the lead up to the final boss fight, they start playing modern covers of the same songs, which was a really, really cool touch.
Interesting. So it had very much the same feel to the song, but it was also obviously different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool when I got to actually like experience that for myself.
Nice.
Mafia 3, really fucking good game. I cannot express that enough. It's probably, like, upon reflection, I think it's one of my favorite narrative games ever.
Nice.
I think it does earn that title very easily. And I think in spite of the mechanical weaknesses I've complained about on the show before, that the narrative overall beats like all of those concerns out. Like, it's such a brilliant game. It deserves to be played by as many people as possible. Yeah, it was another example of a game that I could think of that had some sort of thread to the story that was told exclusively using the radio.
I mean, radio's been very important in the Fallout games as well, but I don't know if it's ever been fully necessary to understand the story fully.
No, I don't think it has been. It's mostly been like stories of your exploits that have like come through in bits and pieces to the radio hosts.
Yeah, I mean, in Far Cry
3 and 4 specifically. Fallout 3 and 4 specifically.
Oh god, yeah, I was saying that as well. Yeah, in Fallout 3, the radio host was an actual story character that did some stuff as well, I suppose. But yeah, it's not quite the same. Just thinking what else had a like strong radio presence.
Do you want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the MidBoss situation?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So, for those who are not aware, we posted a statement about this on our Twitter and such as well. But for those who are not aware, recently things came to light regarding MidBoss, the studio that created 2064 Read-Only Memories. And specifically that the CEO, Matt Kahn, who we've previously interviewed for the show, had engaged in abusive behavior with his employees, including underpaying them to the point where he was paying them below the minimum wage. There is accusations of sexual harassment and other situations that occurred all throughout MidBoss. And this was backed up by several MidBoss employees, both current and former at the time. So if you didn't already know, first and foremost, the interview that we did on this show of Matt Kahn is going to be removed. That interview will probably be removed if you are listening to this recorded. And if you are not listening to this recorded and are listening live, that interview is being removed on the 7th of April. And it'll be removed right about the time this show gets uploaded.
That's on this Saturday, isn't it?
That is the Saturday, yes. So that interview is being removed first and foremost, but we also want to talk about the broader situation at MidBoss, because to be honest, that I'm kind of bummed about that, and I think a lot of the community is kind of hurt by what's happened there. First and foremost, the workers who were working for them were hurt and affected by this, but like the gaming community at large is also affected by this. Matt Kahn also ran one of the most prominent LGBT-focused gaming conventions in the world, GamerX, which has branches in Australia even. It's the only convention of its kind that I can think of that exists in Australia and New Zealand. And it's the only convention of its kind that I can think of in the US either, for that matter. So losing that is a huge blow to the queer gaming community, because MidBoss has effectively dissolved as a result of the fallout of the Matt Kahn situation.
As far as I understand, GamerX is still going, and he's stepped down from his role with it.
It may very well be the case. I know that all of MidBoss proper has effectively dissolved at this point, but GamerX might be in a handover process at the moment, but yeah, Matt Kahn has stepped down from the board of that. I hope we don't lose GamerX.
Yeah.
In the wake of all of this, like, it's a really, really vital resource for queer gamers to be able to come together, and for queer game developers as well. Again, just to come together and have a space where we can talk with other queer people.
I think that's why it hurts when this is happening with MidBoss, right? Because they had a reputation for I hate using the term a pillar of, but like that was kind of their thing, right? They were queer, and that
Yeah,
was like the games that they made, the people they employed and stuff. That was a big part of it. So
it totally was.
that's a big part of why this sucks.
And it also really sucks because 2064, first and foremost, 2064 Read Only Memories was made by a lot of hardworking queer people underneath Matt Kahn. And while he had the vision for that and organized a lot of the business around it, a lot of hardworking queer people are having their work affected by all of this, all this shit. It's out of their hands, and it's really, really unfortunate because you know how you have a lot of people swearing off 2064, but it's also this really, really positive game about queer people, and it positively represents virtually every type of queer person. And so that is what makes this particularly devastating for the queer community and why a lot of people are hurting. Because this kind of came out of nowhere from what we can tell. It was in Whisper Networks for a while, and finally people went public with it. So I guess saying came out of nowhere was incorrect, but like...
It did for us. If we'd known, we wouldn't have done the interview.
Yeah. It blindsided maybe it's more accurate to say it didn't come out of nowhere, but it did still blindside a lot of people. It definitely blindsided me, that's for sure.
Same.
I'm not privy to those queer whisper networks and the folks who were talking about that. But yeah, it's a really unfortunate situation. I hope that we still keep GamerX, because I think that is vital for the global queer gaming community to still have that place to come together and not feel like I don't want to feel like that is a shitty thing to do. I don't want to feel like I'm supporting shitty people by going and, you know, taking part in this vital resource.
I'm glad that in light of that he stepped down from it, because that at least seems like it was one of the right things to do as part of a response.
Yeah.
But I mean, it doesn't change anything that came before it.
Yeah. Fuck.
Yeah.
It's profoundly and profanely shitty. It's a really bad place for this whole, like, it's a really bad place for this whole situation to have occurred, because MidBoss was one of the most major queer game developers that I know of as well. There's a lot of smaller studios, absolutely, but I think MidBoss is probably the one I heard of first and most about. And it kind of made me feel like, oh, hey, maybe queer people have enough of a foothold in games now. Maybe that's what's going on here.
Yeah, it's definitely depressing news, but it's not the whole of it. You know, the fact that GamerX has existed for so long, it's been enough for people to get to know each other, right? Networks exist because of it. So even if it went away, I'm sure that something else would come up in its stead.
Yeah.
Even if not immediately.
I'm sure that something would come up in its stead, because, again, it being such a vital resource, someone out there is probably even planning right now to maybe replace it and provide another resource. The situation has inspired them to get all those resources together and start making their own way. And if you're out there, you're doing that, I want to say, first and foremost, I 100% want to back you up on that. Get in touch and I will see what I can do about making some noise for you. Um, but yeah, I really hope that either GamerX continues and we don't have to worry about shitty management being a problem, or something new comes up to take its place and provide that resource to the queer community at large.
There's another thing I kind of hope for, even though news like this is shitty. I hope that any other places where this is happening, it's in this space, it's going to help bring that to light. Because
I hope so too. Yeah.
The whole world, every community needs to clean house, and that's. I mean, people have known for how long, but it seems to be starting to actually happen now. So, as shitty as it is to hear about this, it needs to happen. So hopefully, where there's more of it, it'll come to light.
I think, in general, the world is slowly kind of making its way towards a better place now. But it's been a rough road to get to this point, even. Like, the gun conversation that's happening in the Americas. We have the Me Too movement as well. Like all of these factors and things are about us cleaning house in our own communities and getting shitty people out and reinforcing good behavior and discouraging shitty behavior as much as possible and getting people to learn and pay attention. And these are really great things. We're slowly getting to a place that I think is better, and I slowly think we are making progress. But, oh boy, it's going to be a fight to keep us going.
Yeah, it's like walking over a field of Lego to get there.
Come on, play with Lego now, damn you.
Yes, my plan worked.
Do you want to shift topics again? I got a question.
Yeah, let's go.
It is not from the inbox, but it is from our Discord.
Okay.
The question asked by Ash Yee is this. Many games will often have heavily scripted, slow intros that are impactful at the moment, but then really slow down and make for frustrating additional playthroughs, like the post-tower destruction in Destiny 2, the cart ride in Skyrim. Would games be better served to streamline these moments for the sake of replayability, or is the first experience of going through them worth it?
Well, I'm first off going to disagree and say that the cart ride in Skyrim was not impactful, it was boring.
It's true, it's really, really boring.
Sorry, maybe that's just me, or maybe it's just the two of us.
There is some interesting, tone and story setting there, I guess.
Definitely.
And it does stick to the tradition of you being a prisoner at the start of every Elder Scrolls game. But you could streamline that scene down to a minute or two, probably, and get the same information across. Like, hey, you were arrested at the border, along with us. We're Stormcloaks, and we suspect we're being taken off to be executed, rather than the 6 or 7 minute drawl that it currently is.
Anyway, that's not. We're getting
that's
off topic fast.
That's neither here nor there.
No, we're getting off topic quite fast. Obviously, it depends on what you're trying to go for in a game, which sort of direction you want to go in. But I like games that will dedicate themselves to a bit more scriptedness. Like I was talking before about how I really enjoy Final Fantasy games, and they're known for having big cutscene moments that are full of story. I really like that part of it, and it's a similar. I mean, it's not only in the opening; they do it throughout. I think a lot of games feel like they're happy to do that in the opening, but then fan out after that and drop away part of that. I think they can lose something there. I think that putting it on rails for a little bit can make a story moment much more impactful. And you don't have to just freeze the player in place and show a cutscene. Like if you've played Half-Life 2 Episode 1, or any of the Half-Life 2 games have got sort of in-game cutscenes where you can move around while the NPCs are talking and stuff. But there's one in particular I can think of, I'm pretty sure it was in Episode 1, where Dog, the robot, is fighting a Strider and you're just there and there's nothing you can do but you can move around. I found that was a really cool and fairly impactful. I mean, I remember it and I haven't played that game in years. Moment, and it was on rails. Essentially, it was very, very scripted. Like the whole
It's not
animation from front to start is what it is.
It's not the like heavily scriptedness of it that is the problem, though.
Okay.
It's the fact that it's right at the beginning
That's fair.
Can be an off-putting situation for, say, something like Destiny 2 is a really good example, because there is this like really, really long intro that takes a couple hours to get through, and some of the stuff takes away a lot of your agency and just moves way too slowly. And so I was thinking something like a skip intro option that would just automatically, we'll put you in the spot that you're good to go for your first mission right at the beginning of the game.
I hate that stuff.
I
feel so bad about it.
I think it's ideal as an option for something like Destiny, because Destiny is an MMO and it's designed to allow you to have multiple character slots. And so the ability to skip that stuff so you're not seeing it for a second or third time, I think that is a good way to do that. Just say, hey, put me right at the beginning of the first mission so I can jump in and start doing the thing I actually care about, because I've already done the story once. I've seen it the first time.
In a case like that, you'd be able to do it so that you've got like a little checkbox in the player's profile, they've done it once. And you don't want to just be like, hey, we'll just throw you in without this context we normally give you.
Yeah. That's the only situation I could see that being fine.
Okay.
Like, I was thinking even Skyrim, like, have the tick box so you could see it the first time, and it's, you get the protracted cart ride. But then after that, you have an option to just, okay, start me at the Helgen attack.
Yeah, well, something that's quite common in Skyrim on PC, at least, is using an alternate start mod to just chuck you right out. Not even having done that opening as well, you've got like a different starting point.
Yeah, there's a reason that those mods are so popular, though, and it's because like people want to get to the meat of the game, because they have seen that intro stuff,
and it's real
in many
boring.
cases you're running a lot of characters in that game. If you're someone like me, like I think I've spun up probably 8 to 10 characters over the course of my time playing Skyrim.
Yeah, I've done heaps as well, and I wouldn't have done nearly as many if I didn't have the alternate start thing.
I suppose and Destiny, the base game, I think I ran I think I ran 8 characters in Destiny as well. I just started new characters fresh because I could, and because I really enjoy the feeling of leveling up for the first time.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah,
I enjoy Destiny and similar games are kind of weird because there is a way to make progress once you reach max level, but I never find that it feels as good as going through the levels for the first time and I've leveled up to level 20 or whatever.
I think this aspect as well of does the scripted opening hold you back? It applies a lot more in games that let you go completely off narrative and not care about it.
Right.
If it is a very narrative-driven game, you're probably going to keep that a fair bit throughout. But if it's something like Destiny or Diablo where you can ignore it, you can ignore it. Like Diablo even has an option in settings to automatically skip cutscenes.
Like, I don't think it would work for something like Uncharted.
No. Although Uncharted does have is it has skipped a chapter. So if you've played through it before, you can just jump straight into a chapter you want to play.
Right.
That sort of thing makes sense.
But like, if you wanted to play the whole story again from scratch, like I couldn't see Uncharted or something similar to Uncharted offering that kind of option.
No.
But something like Skyrim, something like Far Cry, something like Destiny, where you have the ability to spin up multiple characters. I think the ability to skip the intro and just get right to the meat of the game would be hugely beneficial.
Yeah, when the game is more of a playground, and I think those games you mentioned, I would say they have a very playground feel to them.
I think that's accurate.
Then I think having an option to, hey, I don't want to be narrative driven, so can I ignore the narrative? It would fit. But in general, I still hate it.
I feel you.
I just really love narrative-driven games, I think, is what it comes down to.
Oh yeah, same. Like, I said on Twitter at one point that, I said that Far Cry 5 was simultaneously one of the best designed games I've played in a while, and antithetical to everything that I love about video games. Which I think is still true. Like, I love video games for the story, and story is the main reason I come to a vast majority of games. And so when story's really weak, it becomes kind of hard for me to be invested in them. Which is why I said Far Cry 5 is kind of antithetical to everything I profess to love in video games.
I'm thinking now as well of games that let you skip dialogue. I hate it. Don't skip dialogue in games.
I don't mind it if, like, I'll be honest, I use it sometimes. It's mostly for things like, I talked a couple weeks ago about Kingdoms of Amalur and how it's really bad at lore dumping. And so when characters just start lore dumping at me, I like having the ability to say, okay, I don't actually really care about the history stuff. I care about the stuff that's happening now, so stop lore dumping at me, please.
I think the only time I end up skipping dialogue is when it's, oh, I've had this conversation already because I kept talking to you until you repeated yourself.
Yeah.
Which is another just weird video game thing, that sometimes you just keep talking to someone until they repeat themselves and you know it's safe to stop. You won't miss anything.
Dark Souls.
Like, you don't do that in real life. You don't just keep talking to people until they repeat themselves, and then you know it's okay, they won't say anything else. I won't miss anything.
Yeah, Dark Souls does this. To the point where you actually have to go through all of the dialogue for certain characters before they perform certain actions.
Oh, yeah, that's annoying.
Ugh. It's
Train
ultimately
your players
fine.
to do the right things from the first point.
Bearer, seek, lest, and now I can level up. Alright. That's going to do it for this week's episode of PauseCast. Before we go, Mark, what are you looking forward to playing this week?
I never seem to have an answer to this, do I?
No, you don't. Do you have anything... what are you excited for in video games in general? Do you have a thing that you're excited for?
I'm excited to get to a point where I feel like I can have the time to dedicate to the Horizon DLC, so I'll buy it. I don't think that's going to be this week. I'll probably play some more Monster Hunter just because I haven't seen the Devil Joe yet. I haven't played that much of it since it came out.
Get yourself some nasty pickle slices.
It's been annoying. The time I have played it, I've just been searching for it and I haven't found it. But I just need to spend some
I
time
think you haven't found it because you're looking for it. I think
maybe
that's your problem.
Maybe. I'll probably play some Into the Breach just so I want to play that last squad. Aside from that, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what I get a craving for. Maybe I'll reinstall Far Cry 2. We'll see.
Fair. If you do, let me know, and I might do the same.
Okay.
I actually do have it installed.
I think I initially had... It was on PlayStation and PC, was it?
Yes.
Because I feel like I had it on PlayStation, and then when I bought it on PC, it didn't... I had trouble getting it running or something. I don't know. It was a long time ago. I'll see. I think I own it on PC, though.
Ash has a copy of it on PS3, I believe, and I got her to play the PC version recently because me and her have talked about Far Cry 2 on occasion, and like we have very differing opinions about the quality of that game.
Yeah.
And I got her to try the PC version, and her main complaint of combat being really, really bad kind of dissolved when she played that. Which led us to have a discussion about like, oh hey, like, you know, Far Cry 2 was still in an era where PC ports were still the priority, I feel, for a lot of developers. So Far Cry 2's PC port was really, really good, and the combat works quite a bit nicer because it is a PC port and you can be quite a bit more precise with it.
Interesting. My I remember my biggest gripe with Far Cry 2, and honestly it's the only one I can remember, was that things respawned too fast. Like, I'd drive through an intersection and a couple people would shoot at me, so I'd kill them. And then I realised I went the wrong way and turned back and go back through, and the intersection had enemies in it again, and it had been like 30 seconds.
I'm
probably exaggerating, but like it felt like that.
I feel like I remember us having a conversation about this exact thing before. And yes, I remember it being a problem as well, so it's not just you, trust me.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe let's replay Far Cry 2 or something. That'd be fun.
Is that what you're planning on doing this week, or what do you want to play?
Well, I'm not sure where I'm at yet. I've got some exciting stuff to play. I've got Far Cry 5, I've got Assassin's Creed Origins. I'm making some progress in Assassin's Creed Origins.
Cool.
Gonna have some fun with that. But I don't know that I have too much else that's particularly exciting. Yeah, I think I'll just say Assassin's Creed Origins is the thing I'm looking forward to.
Okay. Fair enough.
Thank you to everyone for listening to this episode of PauseCast. If you like what you heard and want to support the show, we have a couple ways you can do that. First, you can rate and review this podcast on your platform of choice. If you're on iTunes, if you're on Pocket Casts, if you're on Android, give us a rating or review in your store of choice. It helps us out a lot. You can also, if you'd like to support this show financially, first we have Coffee for our one-time donations. If you go to bit.ly/pausecastcoffee, you can donate to us for a one-time donation, and we'll use that to improve the show in various ways. You can also support us monthly by supporting us via Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/pausecastshow, you can get access to our Patreon. This will give you access to our Discord if you support us for as little as $1 a month. We have access to a little patron zone on the Discord now, which will give you access to announcements early. We've got a video series in planning that we're working on. So that is all coming up in the near future. If you would like to support if you support us via Patreon, you will get a thank you every week as well. So thank you to all of our patrons. Laminated Moth, PD, Ash Yee, Residoke, Corybat, Dove, Allerdrain, Para, Mary, and Sammy for their continued support of the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. What else am I missing here? Music. As always, I'm missing the music. Thank you to Leon for the use of our theme song, Honey Milk Island. You can find Leon's music and download some of it for free at soundcloud.com/LEYAWN.
And there's also Where Are You Online?
Oh, that's a good question. I can't believe I forgot that one almost. Mark, where can people find you online?
I'm on Twitter at HonestUniverse, and I write a blog as well, though not about video games, at honestuniverse.com. How about you?
You can find me online at bird.school. You can find me streaming on Twitch at maximumgun.org. And that is going to do it for us this week on PauseCast. Again, thank you very much for listening, and we hope to see you again next week. Until then, bird up. See you later.
Bye.